Hello, I am under the assumption we are live, ladies and gents, and welcome back to the Cryptic Racing League. A new season has been brought amongst us after manic work from the ownership team over the last few weeks. Hello Fire Striker, hello Keegan, hello Daniel. Hope you're all doing well and excited just as much as I am for the season opener here in Barcelona de Catalunya. One wonderful track to kickstart this season. All 10 teams have a driver representing them today, so this is a much anticipated event, and I can guarantee you it's going to be one hell of a ride, as drivers are now working their way out of the pit lane. Quite a few new names, quite a few old faces also returning, like Fiora, Daniel, Keegan, Jedi, now taking a full-time drive for the first time since Season 2, ladies and gents. Your reigning Elite and Legends driver champions of Rocco and Fiora. Then, of course, as I said, Daniel, and then Fire Striker, the two Alpines who won this division Constructors' Championship only 2 weeks ago. The high has died down, and now they're in Red Bull and Mercedes respectively, two opposing forces for this season. Bart Verbrugge also returning from the season finale suspension, and Keegan returning after a little bit of a break away for league-related reasons. Then you have Ivanchek, Shankly, Matty, Tuber, Tugger, Judger and Lewis, all new. You may recognise a few of them from the race on Monday, those being Tugger and Ivanchek, I believe. But irrespective of that, Judger will be the first driver to put a lap onto the board. Hello Thomas, hello George, as we are working our way down towards turn 1 for the first time this season. A kilometre long back straight to kickstart this. He's asking for an invite back. He isn't even banned from the server chat, which is the crazy thing. Last time I checked, he left on his own accord. But irrespective of that, Judger going through turn 4, quite wobbly to start it, and they've already depleted their battery use. And through goes, I believe, the Red Bull of Daniel in the Suzuka livery, which is a very striking livery itself, but you can already see the Australian is on much more of a finer run than Judger is himself. Almost like you're seeing no assists versus assists in this league, which you see slightly. The only assists on is TC, ABS, and then I'm pretty sure Racing Line is on corners only. Last time I checked, to be fair, I don't even remember. I hardly revised these lobby settings for this season, but Daniel giving us a good old run out of the final corner up to the start finish line. DRS wide open, and it's a 13.1. As a banker lap, you've got Rocco next to the line. He does a 12.5. Then next up is Bartberg. Judger goes for 25.2. You've got Keegan rounding the final corner, hoping to not go slowest like he did on Monday. He goes 4th for the time being. Ivanchek on a lap, he's invalidated it, so we look at Cuba in the Haas machine. Haas are no stranger to the front end of the grid. Unfortunately, it's a 20.4 for him. Jedi with a 14.3, a good lap for him, but Tugger hoping to tug out a decent result here today. Over the line goes the Silver Arrow, and is 4th on the grid for the time being. You've got Fire Striker, his teammate, also one of the two Constructors' Championship winning pairing, as he goes round and into the wall. Wing damage scattering everywhere, as Suspension is the next man on a flyer who hasn't set one yet. That is this Williams, you can of course see. Then you have Matty starting lap now, and Shankly going round the track in that Sauber. He's going through turn 3 now, up towards turn 4 in a matter of moments' time. But what can this Sauber do? The Williams do. The emphasis on them this season, as they've got Fiora full-time, who is your driver's champion, as off goes suspension. Not a scenic route, to say the least. Probably a very unprovoked line, as Cuba fastest of them all, an 11.8 in that Ascar, a momental lap for the early doors of this qualifying session. What can Matty do? In the Aston Martin, however, Keegan says, I'm locked in. Only 7th fastest at the moment. So there may be a bit more to lock in before he can get his best lap. He's currently 5.4 seconds off of 6th, which is Jedi in that Racing Bulls. But Matty on their way round, as Roadrunner has joined. He will be racing in the Ferrari today, as Matty over the line to go third. A 120 flat for Judger. Thank you for pointing that out, Jedi. May the force be with you, mate, as hopefully you can push up to a top 6, as I believe, Matty did demote through that. Shankly a purple sector 1, however the game doesn't truly know who in fact is purple in each sector until everyone has a sector. Fire Striker says, I think I touched the grass. I don't know, I'm pretty sure you went a bit wider than the grass, even into the gravel trap, and then went round. But anyway, Shankly up to the end of the middle sector, hoping to continue the momentum. It's a 51.8 after the first 2 parts of the lap. It's looking really promising for the man who told me this afternoon today is his return to league racing, and what better way would it be than a pole position here round the final corner, pushing to the absolute limits. What will it be? It will only be 6th fastest, however, 13.9 for them. Then you're on board with Fiora, your reigning champion in this division, which does put quite a lot of pressure on their shoulders. As I can give you a little bit of a fact file if Formula Game Companion app does load, but for Fiora, the lap has not loaded this time round. A mistake putting them out, and they're slowing down, getting out of the way of Daniel, who is going by. As Roadrunner happy that he's in. You've got Daniel rounding the final few corners to start a lap, as Formula Game Companion app still isn't loading for me, which is a great sight, as you can probably hear the mouse clicking. But for Daniel to start a flyer, remember, he's trying to he's trying to win 2 constructors titles in a row, 2 different teams as well, which is quite a status quo. No driver in CRL history has won 2 consecutive constructors, not even 2 consecutive drivers in the same div. For Legends, it was Projo Season 1, Season 2 it went to Konami, Season 3 it was Rocco, and Season 4 it does look like Rocco is under threat by Roadrunner after the first race. Then in Elite, Season 2, which was its first season, won by Konami. And then Season 3 was won by Fiora. So quite a few records on the line. Here's Daniel did invalidate a lap, so it's Bart Verberger on the run next, as we're still waiting for your mum to actually show any sign of life today, as the Alpine working their way through the final few corners, as Fiora does a 12.0, 2nd fastest over the line for Bart, and that puts him up into 6th with a bit more reassurance, to say the least. Jedi finding half a second, however, this lap, being able to possibly compete with Ivanchek and Tugger for a top 8. Remember, this season 12 drivers score points, and the top 3 in qualifying take a point home each. 3 for pole, 1 for third, and points tally 25-1 for first down to 12th as Jedi goes to 7th, which is a good sign to say the least, as Formula Game Companion app still isn't loading, as I've been messaged somewhere as Judger has left the session. I don't even think he's got me added, so there is purely nothing in which I can do. Yeah, nothing I can do there for the McLaren who has left the session. As I do feel like I'm going to get pinged in a few moments' time saying please add me, whereas I'll just turn around and say no. But you've got Cuba on a lap so far. He has gone a 10th up in Sector 1. Ryan Judger says his Xbox keeps crashing, therefore he won't be racing today. That's why Judger has departed ways today in such an early start. Not an ideal way to kickstart their championship campaign. Slowest in quali so far. While Cuba has invalidated their lap, my awareness is so poor. But Matty in 4th, quite strong from what I've seen in WERL, especially last weekend where I made appearance. As Daniel says, I'm just going to wait for the last run, save those tyres. As Daniel says, we aren't going to see him out. As Matty goes for a little trip, a little hop, skip and a jump across the grass and the gravel, losing time after the first 2 sectors. But Fire Striker in low fuel mode, Tugger harvesting, most of these drivers not on a lap, but Keegan, I believe, I just saw set a purple Sector 1, ladies and gents. Could this be a lap and a half from the 14-year-old in the Red Bull alongside Daniel? He will need this for an early championship campaign as such. Whether or not it will happen, we are going to find out. Daniel hyping up Keegan Bryan, just saying crash. As Fire Striker says he nearly missed a pit entry. This has not been an ideal start to Fire Striker's season whatsoever, but for Keegan continuing their way around the lap as Roadrunner went to P5 in their first run for the Ferrari. Again, reserve role for them this season. They ended up upgrading to a full-time seat, but Keegan over the line, and it's an 18.3, still slowest man out there who's going to be in the race. But if you're to include Judger, it will be 15th. Bro in the 18s, Brian is shocked, as Jedi did turn around to me not too long ago complaining of a headache, saying I don't know if I'll race. Then he saw Keegan was and was like, I'm gonna race so I don't drop behind him in the championship. But for Lewis, he's gone for 52.0. As Keegan's complaining about the middle sector, I'd be complaining about the whole drive of the lap if I was that Red Bull, because still a miraculous 3.5 seconds off of suspension as the closest competitor up to the line for Lewis. However, what can they do in the Haas? They will go to P11, just demoting Shankly to 12th so far. As out onto track comes Fiora in the Williams. I was going to say it was suspension for a moment, but that's not true. Remember, 12 drivers score points in the main race, so for Shankly, he would still be lining up with 1 point come the end of this race. Daniel says Fiora won't get another run after this, which is a shame. But Fiora may be fueling up for a double run to go against the grain and try and compete with warmer tyres in the end. but Daniel being apologised to for Keegan, as Daniel saying his tyres will be too hot. Quite a few drivers messaging in chat trying to either A, hype another up, or B, knock their confidence. But Fiora, he's the reigning champion. He will have confidence entering this lap, knowing he can find 2/10 on a Haas to put himself on pole for the first race of the season. Up towards turn 1 goes Fiora in the Williams, burning some of that battery, dropping down to the 4th gear through the first corner, chucking it through the first three, holding it tight to the inside. Yes, it is 12 places. That score in the race, Brian. Do not worry, as Fiora 400ths of a second down in the first part of the lap. There is still quite a bit of time to gain. Ladies and gents, you still have about half a lap to determine whether or not Fiora will be able to go quicker than the Haas ahead, because time is of the essence here and it's all on the line. Will we see a new driver go to the top? However, Fiora storming middle sector, 3/10 up. This is what we'd like to see here in CRL, as Cuba now leaving the pit lane, whilst Fiora charging it through the final 2 corners, to the right and then to the right again. A very technical section indeed. Over the line for Fiora Anderson, 11.7, a brilliant lap to put themselves safely onto the front row. But there's still time to determine whether or not he will keep that, as Lewis is finding time in the Haas car over the line up to 8th. A good lap for them. Ivanchek to start a run now. Battery and DRS in works all the way down to the first corner. Ivanchek was in amongst the midfield in Legends, looking like he's a bit in no man's land here in the Elite Div. So surely there's a bit more performance in that Scuderia. Maybe can he accompany Roadrunner in this? As such, he's 88 thousandths up in the first sector. The Ferrari pushing to its absolute maximum, but will their maximum be enough come the end of this qualifying session? Lewis has just asked if there's a stream, as I'm pretty sure all drivers have been pinged about one. So for Ivanchek, working their way down to the end of the middle sector, 1.9 up. There's time being found, but is that time going to be enough for a stronger start, or will Ivanchek just have to settle in for 13th? Traffic all forming as he goes around the final corner up to the start finish line, using a bit of the tow from Rocco, but for Ivanchek it's 7th in the in the Ferrari. A good lap, as Thomas saying he's joined back. I am not too overly annoyed by that. I'm not even bothered, based off the fact I'm trying to commentate a qualifying session. But Daniel chucking it through the corners as Ivanchek has retired on track, and so has Fiora. They're both facing quali bans for round 2, which is not good whatsoever. But Daniel, half a second up. This is the time for the Red Bull to show him what he's made of, as quite a few drivers all retiring on track. At this point, they're all going to have a quali ban next week, and we'll have to find a new method to determine the grid. But for Daniel, over the line, and it's going to be 4 fastest, just nipping the competition to that second row. But Roadrunner only to 5th. Rocco up next. Can he go to pole? Will Rocco be able to take pole position here? He's invalidated it. A crucial mistake at the very final hurdle, as Tugger up next to P11, as Puchatek blaming Keegan for bottling pole, as Tugger goes 11th. What about Fire Striker? He's not finding time. He will only go to 10th, and it will be Fiora, the reigning champion, on pole position once again, and an imperious start to this Elite Div season. But boy oh boy, We are in for one hell of a race. But yeah, the grid: Fiora, Cuba, Rocco, Daniel, Roadrunner, Matty, Ivanchek, Bart, Lewis, Fast Striker, Tugger, Jedi, Shankly, and then it was the likes of Suspension, Keegan, and then Juggler. As we are going to give everyone a race start time at 1/2 the hour. We've got 3 minutes to sit down and relax. Go grab a drink. Go grab a bag of crisps or popcorn. As Putratek's trying to report an incident to me in the general chat while I'm here commentating. So, I don't know. But, anyways, we are going to have the race in 3 minutes time. As let's now actually try and get you some stats and facts from last season, cram them in while we wait, because Formula Game Companion app still is not loading. Roadrunner's gone. Is a one stop possible? That's for him to judge in this race. Putratek saying no, and he's the man. Starting on the front row, one of the two cars to beat. Jedi saying he was best Monday commentator all season. That's like saying I was the best Wednesday commentator in last season. So yeah, we'll debate about that Jedi later, don't you worry. As we've got 1 minute left until the race start here today. As now let's actually try and find the Hall of Fame, because I actually can't see it. I am insanely blind, people. Season 3, there we go. The combined constructors of last season. Williams won it, followed by Red Bull, Alpine, Sauber, Mercedes, Racing Bulls, McLaren, Haas, Ferrari, then Aston Martin. But if you look in the Elite Div more specifically, Alpine won the constructors by 22 points over Red Bull, 40 over Williams and 45 over Mercedes. Then it was Sauber, Ferrari, Racing Bulls, McLaren, Haas, and then Aston, which is crazy for Haas regarding season 1 and 2. They had their team in all championship fights. Then they went to no glory in season 3. Anyways, the lights ticking down as it's just ticked half past. And lights out, and away we go for CRL Season 4 Elite Div here in Barcelona. It's Fiora versus Cuba. Fiora already covering the Haas off, showing no room whatsoever, as round the outside goes Cuba, sweeping through. He'll have the inside for turn 2 and will be ahead of your reigning world champion, but you can see a bit further back it's Matty who's had a great start, and Rocco pushing Daniel all the way to the full width of the road and beyond it. But Daniel has been able to try and slot it down the inside for turn 4. The Red Bull and Racing Bulls fighting like they've never drove against each other before, and almost as if it's the season finale already here in Barcelona. But everyone away cleanly. Fiora trying to fight back, looking to the outside for turn 8. A big snap from your race lead, and through goes Fiora up into the lead once more. And Matty now on the back of the Haas driver. Will they be able to mount a challenge into turn 11? No, they won't. But Rocco had a little peek to the inside of Daniel for a brief moment, had it in their mind for a few moments whether or not they should send the lunge or not. However, that is lap 1 down. That's the most difficult part of your race done. You just have to try and survive from here on out. Fiora, fastest lap in the Williams, an 18.9. Of course, he was the first driver to complete the lap. Of course, he's the fastest man out on track, but we can look a bit further down the field. There's Roadrunner to the inside of Jedi. That is the Ferrari working their way past the Racing Bulls. As you could see, even in the background, the AI of Judger fighting against Keegan for 15th in this race. But we can go back up to the front end of the field as Fiora, almost the second clear of the Haas behind. They are starting to run away in this race. The stakes are high as well for Fiora. He knows he has to try and defend that title with all their might. And it's definitely not going to be easy. But a bit further back is Roadrunner making another move round the outside of Shankly into the entry of turn 11. But the Sauber slipping back down the inside with the softer compounder tyres. Only issue is the 2 cars ahead on the hards in this race, so it won't be the easiest of drives for them. So many different tyres used, 5 on the softs, 3 on the hards, and everyone else on the mediums. So different strategies are in play, as we can just see how perilously close these 4 all get to giving each other a little push around the first few corners. But it's indefinite that those hards are struggling in this race. However, it will give them an opportunity to go rather long in the event as well, as Roadrunner trying to pull it round the outside for turn 5 on Shankly. You can see the Ferrari's pulled the switchback. That's what it is, not the undercut. Otherwise that would have been qualifying we're on about. But Roadrunner up and through into 11th place here. And their hunt on for the points is back in action, as of course this would be 2 points Roadrunner is taking home with this ramificated points system, as it's 25 for win, 20 for second, 18 for third, 15 for fourth, 12 for fifth, 10 for sixth. Then it's 8, 6, 5, 4, 2 and 1 to determine how the points get spread throughout this season, and then 3, 2, 1 in your qualifying session. But for the most part, these drivers all giving it everything they've got. Unfortunately for Lewis, he's dropped off from this top 5 group. He's running for the lead of the best of the rest, which is Ivan Chek, the 2 Mercedes, and then Roadrunner all in behind, trying their best to keep up. But Fast Strike on the hards, it just has not gelled in this early stage. 2.7 back on their teammate after the first 3.5 laps here. As at least it's good to see for the most part everyone with a car out on track in near competition, as that is much better than last season, where Fiora was winning by about 45 seconds on the field. But for Cuba, he has got 3 seconds for track limits. Your first penalty of this evening, as yellow flags waving, as suspension has had a moment with their suspension, which probably led to them having a little bit of a spin, as Roadrunner now ahead of Fast Striker. Their hunt is 3 seconds down the road, that being Tugger in the Mercedes car. But now you have Matty in the Aston Martin trying to defend against Daniel for the third place in this race. Those softs will be degrading in the next few laps, and the mediums will really come into their own and most likely be the better tyre to use for the longevity in this race. Matty, however, picking that softs to start on, hoping to have a spurt of life. That really has not came around, because they are now out of DRS range just about on Kuba. It'll be interesting to see whether or not he will get DRS. No, he won't. The rear wing does not open. That means Daniel has an opportunity heading towards turn 1. Are they going to go to the inside? No, they won't. They will be patient about it. They know that they can wait this out here today. As Rocco still looming in the background, waiting to pounce in that Racing Bulls, but just unable to work their way through. As you can see, look to the inside there for turn 5, just did not have the momentum to actually go for it and hit them with the sucker punch as such. But you can see just behind the Haas of Lewis, you've got Ivanchek and Tugger both pulling themselves along behind this Haas car in the fight for 6th. As it's so competitive, but there's been a moment. Daniel has gone round in the Red Bull and will come out just ahead of the Haas. Is he going to be in danger? Is the question now, because Lewis on the back of him, and he will get DRS on the main straight. It's 1.2 kilometers, and those 1.2 kilometers should surely see an overtaking opportunity into turn 1. DRS being used from the Haas. They just won't be close enough to make a move. Bart a bit further back. Bart on Fire Striker. We saw them fighting in the season finale, where Bart was in a Red Bull and Fire Striker was in the Alpine, and that's not came round. But Rocco has had a moment. He's going slow. He's let Daniel by, and Lewis having an invitation to go around the outside, looking to the inside for turn 5, but Rocco is going to cover him off in the Racing Bulls. It's a shame for Rocco, who looked like he could have been on for a possible podium. He is now fighting for probably 4th at best for the foreseeable future. However, that mid-pack all closing back into each other once more. You can see that the gap between 4th and 11th being just about 5 or 6 seconds out on track, and then Jedi being further 4 seconds down the road, and Shankly tucked in behind. That's your fight for the final points playing position here today, as all of these drivers trying to go as long as possible. As Tugger to the inside of Ivanchek, I'm pretty sure that did catch him off guard. As to the inside they're going to go. Will they be able to pull it off? Just like Rocco and Daniel fighting ahead, Tugger will have to settle in behind, however, like Rocco has to against the Australian in P4. But they are giving it absolutely everything that they've got out on track, trying to minimise that margin as much as possible. Some drivers definitely are track dependent in this game, and you can see that quite clearly with Daniel's elixir of life in the 2 races this week. He looks so strong in Monza until he had that moment with Rocco that saw him out of the race, and then here even qualifying in amongst the hypothetical big dogs as such. But for Keegan's race today, he will be lapped on lap 9 of 33. The Red Bull in their own world here today, as that is the first car to be lapped. Kuba into the pits. He's getting off those mediums rather early, as those soft compound runners running longer than the Haas driver, than Shankly being the first of the soft runners to actually pit in this race. So we're now seeing the variation of strategy come into play. Will we see the likes of Ivanchek or Matty pitting in the next lap? The Aston Martin surely would want to pit soon to protect themselves from the undercut of the Williams. Yes, I know you were first to pit, Keegan, hence why you're on 2 lap old soft. I was saying that Kuba was the first to pit of the leaders. Emphasis on the leaders. But anyways, Lewis just watching a beautiful battle commencing ahead of him. That's Rocco versus Daniel. They, of course, had a tussle in Monza, which you can watch on YouTube as of tomorrow, or even on Twitch tonight if you're that bored. But Rocco closing in to the Red Bull, towards turn 1, to the inside they're going to go. Surely the lunge is going to work, and it will for this attempt. But is Daniel going to be able to fight back? Surely he will have some chance at competing with this Racing Bulls, but no. Rocco gets through, and Rocco is on the charge once again. So that very much has dimmed down the doubt in this race about whether or not Rocco has lost his touch as such, because now he is in some clean air, so we are about to see the true pace. Unfortunately, however, 14 seconds back from Fiora. Those two were the title contenders in the Legends Div last season. Fiora unfortunately missing the final 2 races, having to forfeit it to Rocco. But Daniel all over the back of them, still working their way towards turn 1 as Lewis into the pit. The strategy again coming into play. Is that Haas looking at an undercut as Daniel just flying through? No thought about that, as that was a rather easy move to say the least, as you can see. Now Keegan being lapped by his teammate Daniel, and taking about 12 different lines down that straight, which is a very interesting method, to say the least. Quite a twitchy driver. Tried sending a lunge, and off the road goes Keegan. You can see the Red Bull in his own rear view going across the track again. Just looking so erratic, so unnerved in that Red Bull, and off the road they have gone once again. That's about their 5th on track offing in the last 3 corners. But anyways, Judger, which is the AI, into the pits. Hopefully Keegan's not been overcut by an AI. That would be humiliating regarding its 50 AI here in CRL. Into the pits comes Tugger. He is saying he's had enough of those mediums. The hard compounds were also starting to definitely look stronger. So Fire Striker versus Bart, Mercedes versus Alpine. Will there be a change? Not into the first corner. So this is where the drivers have to rethink and recuperate, because there is still quite a long way to go, especially for those hard compound runners. Their first stint, you're not looking to be done until gone lap 20 if you want to make a 1-stop in this race. But tyre deg is so high, especially in Barcelona, so those on the mediums trying to extend as long as possible to reduce the laps they need to run on the hards come the end of this race. As Rocco and Daniel now still in their own race for second, but they've got Roadrunner in behind them now, the man who dropped all the way to the back on the opening lap, in amongst the fight for the top 5. As into the pits comes Daniel. He has very much chickened out at the earliest opportunity, but he's going to go onto some fresh rubber, which will be absolutely brilliant for their battle with Rocco. It will put them ahead, but will the tyres be worn out come that stage? As you can see, Daniel limping out the pits. Is he going to be behind Lewis? Yes, he will. What about Ivanchek? The Ferrari on the outside for the first corner, and it will be Ivanchek who will get ahead, getting pushed off the road as well by Daniel, but the Scuderia beats the Red Bull. So does that spark some alarms at Racing Bulls? Are they in danger of dropping outside the top 10 as provisional standings? Because of course you have to bear in mind Fire Striker, Roadrunner and Jedi are between them and 10th and yet to pit. But Fiora, lap 13 comes to close and the leader is in for their first and possible only stop in this race. And Fiora has such an advantage. You can see Rocco and Roadrunner both going by, and Fiora's so far ahead. They've managed to pull out still ahead of Kuba in the Haas and ahead of Fire Striker by a pit stop, which is miraculous for the reigning champion, showing why he deserves that status quote coming into the season. And they definitely are not slowing down whatsoever as they go on a charge in that Williams. As through turns 8, 9 up towards turn 10 now, they're also in DRS range of Roadrunner. Will they be able to just breeze their way past the Ferrari and Racing Bulls? They'll look to a wider line, try and tuck in on the exit, but it's a purple first sector for Fiora, who's taking the wider lines, trying not to put much wear onto those tyres at such an early stage in this stint, and will get DRS down towards turn 1. Three-way battle, Roadrunner versus Rocco versus Fiora. Roadrunner defends to the inside, Fiora goes through, then immediately searches for the toe from the Racing Bulls, but the toe not strong enough this time, as Matty overtaking Fire Striker for 5th place in this race. The Aston Martin is through, and the Aston Martin now on pursuit for Kuba in the Haas car, as Keegan has retired and a safety car is out, ladies and gents. Perfect timing for Roadrunner and Rocco. We are going to see where Keegan's gone off. He's in amongst the wall. I think the studs would like to actually see how that DNF has came about for Keegan, so if he can create a ticket and actually go and post his DNF in there, would be amazing. Just so then the stewards can turn around and say he did nothing wrong. As Keegan says he couldn't fucking brake in a corner which is meant to be high speed. That is interesting, guys, to say the least. So yeah, Keegan, can you please post your POV in a ticket? Then that way the studs can investigate. As into the pits comes Rocco. So many cars coming in, and they're going to get the tyre delta. As a result, this is going to change the race, as Kuba and Matty both pitting, but Fiora staying out. It's pretty much a wasted stop for Fiora if you are to think about it that way. So now this is where the questions start to linger here today. How's Red Bull going to cope? Because if you think about it, for Daniel, he is now losing massively, as Daniel in P7. He's dropped behind Matty. He's dropped behind Kuba. He's even behind Roadrunner and Rocco, who they were fighting with out on track when they pitted. So now we are going to see a few laps under that safety car, and then hopefully we will see a race to the end for the final 14 to 17 laps. As Puchatek is letting his teammate know that he should be ahead, as I wonder what happened for Lewis. It never braked on slow corners and hit the wall. Keegan, the reason why is because we do no braking assist. So you need to brake hard instead of just driving. And yeah. Yeah, of course you use high braking assist, so you just expect the car to slow down, but clearly you didn't brake hard enough. As Lewis saying, his game froze and has dropped behind 4 cars. Eskin safety car needed to be 3 laps. 4 hard runners. Keep your head cold, says Puchtek. That's some awkward advice, but I know what he's trying to say there. Keegan, I have a clutch as well on my setup. I use that. The clutch isn't made for braking. If you hold down to your clutch, I know this by driving a road car and learning lessons. Hold down to the clutch, you let the engine run, and you're just going to go flying. You're only going to go quicker by holding the clutch. Braking and clutching, you have to brake before clutch. So you can't clutch and brake, you're just going to go nowhere with that. But you have to brake and then clutch down if you're on about a manual road car. If you're on about an F1 car, that's where I say automatic gears. Safety car in this lap, as I hope you have all enjoyed my micro lecture about manual cars gear systems, but that is out the window, as these drivers are all going to be roaring towards turn 1 as Lewis has retired from the session on track. That will be a race ban going his way just because he got frustrated that the game froze, which is disappointing to say the least, as I hope he's now realised. But Fiora has run up towards turn 1 as he's saying the game's crashed, but Roadrunner gets yellow flags for ignoring, as it's been absolute manic because you've had to let that McLaren cross the line, and this gave Fiora a mighty advantage as round goes Matty in the Aston Martin Coupe. 10 seconds for ignoring yellow. So many cars getting penalties for ignoring the yellows here, as I have no clue what's gone on with this race start procedure. It's been absolute manic, but Roadrunner and Kuba now running with 10 seconds. Rocco plummeted down the field as a result, as this is where I think we need to introduce some form of system around that AI, because that has led to absolute manic. But for Mercedes, they are head raise high sky, or not high sky, sky high, as they're now 5th and 6th. This is looking really good for their early championship stance. But Jedi in the background trying to replicate what he used to be able to do, as DRS is now enabled, but for the likes of Roadrunner, he's 3 seconds back on Fiora. That momentum has been squandered, but everyone else pretty much in DRS range with one another. Jedi to the inside for Bart into turn 1, 7th and 8th. Going at it. Will the Racing Bulls be ahead, or will the Alpine? The Alpine on the outside line for turn 3. It's surely the better line, but for turn 4, the Racing Bulls again will have the inside. Push the Alpine out wide. You can see a loss of traction for Bart, and that will allow Jedi to wiggle his Racing Bulls machine past and up into 7th place in this race. A crucial move as Rocco to the inside of Ivan Chek, who is now covering off Shankly in the Sauber for 10, as Matty is not going to be happy with life whatsoever. He's missing a chunk of front wing as well, and just driving around waiting for his own chance to probably pit and retire. Remember, 12 places score here in CRL. So Fiora fastest lap. That's a good run and a good motto to send to the rest of the field, as some of these people will be time managing to the end. Those are looking like Firestrike and Jedi. Talking about Jedi overtaking Tugger into turn 1. But then Daniel versus Roadrunner, second versus third out on track. Will we be able to see a battle for the podium spark up, or is this going to be game over for Roadrunner and Kuba because they both have those 10-second penalties? Jedi 3 seconds for track limits. He should not be worried as such. He's 6th out on track at the moment. It's definitely a manageable race for him. He's still leading his teammate Rocco, so they're going to have to think of a way to swap cars as efficiently as possible. Fiora to turn 1, fastest lap again. Daniel DRS on the Ferrari. Will he go to the inside this time? Yes, he will. And surely that is him through and up into second. Game settled for that fight for second, certainly. But do not rule out Firestriker no matter what. 5th place at the moment, and he's also lurking in the background of this fight on track. At the moment, those two ahead fighting will not even be qualifying or scoring points with those penalties. Firestriker to the outside of Kuba. Kuba trying to pin it to the inside, keeping it clean. A bit of contact, a bit of debris scattering across the road, but it'll be Kuba who is ahead in that Haas, working their way down to the next corner. 1 second down on their fastest lap delta, which just shows how much fighting has unravelled on lap 21 here today. As I do think we have to sit and analyse what happened on that safety car restart more than anything else, because I'll be honest, I've never seen that in my commentary career, as that is definitely a sight and a half to be seen, as Roadrunner trying to hold it round the outside in defence of that third place. Ivanchek 3 seconds for track limits. This is where the race matters more than anything for some of these drivers. The cleaner they can take this run to the line, the more comfortable they will be in their positions. As it will be interesting to see whether or not our top 3 could be the top 3 from the standings last season, as those standings was in, well, 3 of the top 4, because your mum came second in the standings, not here today, but Fiora, Daniel and Firestriker in that order were first, third and fourth in the drivers. Can they take the top 3 spots here today due to those post-race penalties, or will Firestriker have to drop off so far to cover those tyre wear issues? As Kuba to the outside of Daniel, rounds a long way, making contact with the Red Bull, and round he goes. That is not ideal whatsoever. He's now behind Firestrike, and there comes Rocco on the Red Bull as well. So could Rocco pick up the scraps and gain another place in this race? He'll look to the inside. He doesn't go for the lunge, however. That is very smart racing, I'd say, from Rocco, not taking it like he has to get the move done. Instead, sitting out and waiting for it. It's being wise with the resources in which they have at Racing Bulls. As yellow flags, I believe that's suspension going slow. About to come under threat from Matty
in the Aston Martin, who's going to be able to come home and say he got a point as a result of finishing 12th, which probably will not be what he'd like to hear from his engineers, but it's better than hearing nothing at all. As Tugger getting quite aggressive on those curbs, Rocco towards turn 1, he'll look to the inside, he'll then have to go to the outside as Rocco puts in, not for Rocco, Daniel puts in some defence, and round goes Daniel once more. Jedi now ghosting through the Red Bull. It's not going well whatsoever for this Red Bull. That's the second lap in a row he's had contact through that corners, but in the pits he doesn't think he'll be able to go to the end on those mediums. So the softs being bolted on for this final stint. Will they be able to pursue that 11th place once more, or are they going to have to settle down for a pointless season opener? It will be interesting to see whether or not they can do it, as now Jedi waiting for the opportunity to come around for 6th place, as Daniel not able to escape the DRS range as such. As going through the final 2 corners, Jedi just hanging on, I think. Very narrow as Tugger into the pits. The Mercedes boxing now. Quite a few cars debating whether or not they'll be able to make it to the end of lap 33. So, some opting for another stop. Shankly also limping down the pit lane here, as the Sauber and Mercedes are going down the pit. Suspension and Matty both go through. Where's Bart's going to come out compared to him? You're going to see Bart ahead of both the Mercedes and Alpine. So 11th is now a fight for 9th here today, as all those cars will desperately be in hot pursuit of suspension in that Williams, who isn't the quickest driver, but will get some stuff. Well, he'll actually get some racing. Usually when he's in CRL, he doesn't get too much on track competition. Today he's got Matty, Tugger, Bart and Shankly all hunting him down for a place on track come the end of this race. And there's not much time whatsoever left, as Rocco closing in on Fire Striker to the inside of the Mercedes, and through he goes. That's nice and easy. And then Jedi and Ivanchek swapping places. The Ferrari up into 7th as Tugger to the inside of Suspension pitting here today. That will be them back down to 13th in this race and out of the points. Well, Bart to the inside of Matty for the first corner. That is the Alpine into 10th place. A nice move indeed, as it will be a question who will come out first, Tugger or Bart. 9th versus 10th, and a very big question mark lingers over whether or not they can possibly catch back up to the field in the 7 odd laps in which they have left. But for Roadrunner and Kuba, this is definitely the ideal outcome in this race, as it means they'll still hopefully both come home in the top 7. They can of course appeal those penalties if they don't serve it in the pit lane. So they could be a chance they try and appeal it, blaming the AI for desyncing the game as such. But Matty under threat from Shankly for P11. Aston Martin versus Sauber. The Sauber on fresh mediums, the Aston on the older hards. Towards turn 1, DRS wide open. Shankly to the inside of Matty. And down they go. And up into 11th place. There's a point extra for the Sauber. And at least Aston Martin can turn around and say they still have 1 point to take home here today, which is much more than none if you think about it in that sense. Because 1 point is 1 point closer to winning a title, as Will Buxton would say. But Roadrunner versus Kuba still out on track. Second and third as things stand. Currently 7th and 8th. After the penalties, maybe even 6th and 7th, if lucky. But Roadrunner unable to make a move, as Daniel closing in to the back of Firestriker now. The two former Alpine teammates who gave us one hell of a show against the Red Bull duo out in Bahrain for last season's finale. Back at it again in Spain, but this time for opposing constructors. Will Daniel be able to beat his former compadre as such? As I'm pretty sure he beat Firestriker in the championship last season as well. So this is a battle for pride and on merit, as Firestriker 12 lap old hards, Daniel 5 Firestriker 12 lap on old mediums, not hards, and Daniel 15 lap old hards, as he tries going the long way around. He's got more traction, and I believe Firestriker had a bit of contact that sent him spinning for a brief moment. That is Firestriker settled down to P6, but Ivanchek closing up to the back of them as well. As Jedi was talking to me the other day about how track dependent Firestriker actually is. Some tracks he's really strong at, one of them being Miami. He got a podium there last season. And then another comparison being as such Spa last season, where he kind of raced in no man's land for most of it. And then even here today, pretty much 8th on the grid or whatever, and just been fighting for those middle places. Whereas we know he's got the momentum and spirits to be competing on par with the likes of Rocco when his type of track comes around. And I would want to say that in fact is coming next week with Las Vegas. A street track is what I tend to see that Mercedes do better around. So hoping that will be some form of contribution. And then the following week you'd have Silverstone. Then you have your first of 2 sprint races this season with Belgium or Spa-Francorchamps. And then you'd only be waiting for 2 more weeks with Qatar, and then your second sprint at Canada. Then you have Australia, Monaco, Mexico and Brazil to round out this Drivers' Championship for the Elite Div. Whereas for Legends, next week you have Singapore, then you have Hungary, then you have your first of 2 sprints again at Mexico. You then have Bahrain, Austria, your second sprint at Silverstone, Brazil, Canada, Abu Dhabi. So quite a few tracks overlaying at different times this season. But one core thing in both calendars is every single track on it, apart from Brazil, has got a hint of red in, just to match the red theme this season, with all the graphics just changing up the colour coordination as we usually do to help tell the seasons apart. Season 1 was green, Season 2 was yellow, Season 3 was purple. This season we went, why not go with red? As maybe Season 4 you'll get, Season 5 will let you pick what colour you want us to colour code it. Whether that's blue, whether that's indigo, whether that's even black. But anyways, Ivanchek overtaking Firestriker, not having to contemplate and procrastinate it as much as we are with colour coordination changes. But that is the Ferrari into P6, and he's quite a way back from Roadrunner now. So Kuba and Roadrunner could definitely be on for top 5s. I believe both cars top 4, with Roadrunner's gap from Daniel being big enough on its own. But Kuba, 13 seconds of track limits will give Roadrunner that place here today. Just thought I'd show those penalties for a moment, as Fast Striker will be doing all he can to fight back against Ivanchek, whilst Tugger is going to be trying to fight back against Bart in the Alpine. Bart's no stranger to combat here in CRL, as this only marking his second event in his time here as a driver, and he's able to just hold on for that 9th place. Fast Striker using DRS now. How close can he get to Ivanchek? Penultimate lap now for these drivers, just not close enough to go for a move, but Tugger could give us a battle on the final 2 laps here towards turn 1 now. The Mercedes versus the Alpine. Who's going to make it to that first apex first? It looks like the Alpine, as Bart defending nice and wisely, shimmying it slightly offline, kind of telling the Mercedes, if you go to the inside, I'm just going to cover you off. So you better stay in line, as Matty pitting for the fastest lap point, I want to say. Actually, no, just to go a lap down on Fiora and then take it a bit quicker, because he would have had to do an extra minute of driving if he was to have continued in the way they were. But for Matty, it's a pointless race, which is very much a shame. As you can see there, Tugger to the inside against Bart, unable to make the move, as they will look all the way around, see whether or not there's an inkling of hope, but hope has not came on that occasion. But less than 3 attempts, rounding the final corner up towards turn 1. Surely the Mercedes is going to get it on the Alpine. DRS wide open. Where do they go? They just hold back, hold back, hold back. They'll look to the inside. They won't go for it. The door was right there. It was wide open. It was wider open than my own door to my bedroom. And Tugger unable to capitalise on it, but he's going to look for it into turn 4, as there's a Racing Bulls off. Is that Rocco? No, it's Jedi in the Haas Racing Bulls. He's got a puncture in that front left, so suspension could be on for a possible point. He will get 12th, but Jedi will come home P11 as long as he can make it to the start-finish line, as Fiora has won. We've missed out on so much action, but Fiora is your winner here for round 1 in Barcelona. Sorry for not catching it like I usually do, but man, we've just had so much havoc in these last few moments. Jedi will probably be gutted with that. However, it will be Fiora, Rocco, Roadrunner, Kuba, then Daniel in 5th. As over the line, who will be 8th? It will be Bart in 8th. And Tugger to take home 9th. Shankly in 10th. And then you have Jedi, who's gone off there. Surely he is going to just do all he can to get it to the finish line. As Fast Striker saying rear left on 78%. Which just shows how much of a danger those mediums were at the closing stage. And unfortunately for Jedi, he met the puncture here in Barcelona. At least he can come home and claim a point for his championship, which I can guarantee you he probably will not be too happy with. It could have been much more, but didn't manage it, as it will be Fiora who wins here today. Got it round turn 3, but thought I could stop it from delaminating, which is a shame.
Yeah, that was his race. Over and done with. In a flash. As, yeah, that idiot Keegan with safety car. Anyways, it's Fiora who won, followed by Rocco. Then it's Roadrunner, Kuba in 4th, Daniel 5th, Ivan Czech in 6th, Fast Striker 7th, Bart 8th, Tugger 9th, Shankly 10th, Jedi 11th, Suspension 12th, Matty 13th, and then Judger failing to start, Lewis and then Keegan both failing to finish. But that's been me for today. I hope you've enjoyed a fairly hectic round 1 here at Barcelona. And I'll see you all next Tuesday, hopefully, for Fantasy Div if the TP sign drivers. If not, next Wednesday for the Elite Div race in Las Vegas. But yeah, that's been me for now. Have a good day.